All right, everybody. Coach Ryan here with one of Endured Sports University's athletes, Ed Snoble, out in Chicago. Ed, this past weekend, raced at the IRONMAN Muncie 70.3. Had a pretty solid day. So, Ed, tell us about the race. How'd it go?
Yeah, it went really, really well. We really executed this almost perfectly. In that, this would be my third 70.3 that we've done, and the first one, the goal was just to get through it and kind of get used to what it's like to do it. The second one, I did a significantly harder course and was slightly injured when we did it. So this was a little bit of redemption time for me, but at the same time, the goal to come out of this race was to make sure I was feeling really, really good before we do the full in about 5 or 6 weeks from now. So I had a couple goals going into it. And first, wanted to set a new record for myself, which based on some prior times wasn't terribly hard to do. But the key for me is I wanted to be able to execute the race properly. I wanted to be able to go pretty hard, but then I also wanted to be able to still be able to walk around when it was all said and done. And so meaning be able to get through the full 70 miles and feel pretty darn good when it was all said and done, versus maybe doing the death marks like we've done in the past. So the race was really, really well done on my part, as far as I walked out of that thing feeling really, really good about the effort.
Outstanding, outstanding. So, what was the result? Did you end up with a new PR?
Yeah, so we actually, I'm very proud to say, is that we chopped 32 minutes off of that race time,
Wow.
and which is not an insignificant amount by no means. And as you and I were discussing, the nice thing is you take a look at some of the numbers. When you and I first started working together back in November, we'd set a lot of baselines, and my FTP on the bike was at a certain figure for 20 minutes, and we kind of built the training off of it. And it's kind of cool to know that about 8 months later, we went almost 56 miles on the bike at full FTP. So by building all that strength in and building all the workouts and the endurance and everything else, it allowed us to go out and really just, we kind of looked at the swim as like, let's get the blood flowing a little bit, get some heat in the body. We jumped on the bike and hit it real hard, and actually ended up coming in 12 to 13 minutes faster than we planned to on the bike. And so once we popped off that, went through a relatively quick transition and jumped into the run. I was very proud to say that from a half marathon time, I was only about 10 minutes off of my normal half marathon PR, and that's not on the backside of an Ironman. I'm just saying just go out and run a half marathon in the neighborhood. I only missed that by 10 minutes. So do that on the backside of a race and feel pretty good about it when it was all said and done was a pretty exciting day for me.
Yeah, I bet. One of the most impressive things, watching you do the training and kind of guiding you through that process is that initial FTP test that you mentioned. We did that back in November, and I think it came out with your FTP somewhere around 153, 154, somewhere in there. And then you were able to go ride 56 miles. I think you had a 249 bike split. Your average power was 153 watts. Now, obviously, your FTP's gone up a heck of a lot since
Little bit.
since we did it. But it's when your average power supersedes the FTP test from the beginning, and then your normalized power is even greater than that. That's a testament to you as an athlete and putting in some great work. Tell us a little bit about the preparation that was more specific for Muncie, and what your thoughts were on that, and how that shook out.
Yeah, so the preparation, or I guess you could say the goals for going in, is we're trying to kind of accomplish two things, in that we wanted to use this 70.3 as a test race going into the full that we're doing in September. And so the goal was to be able to do this one a little bit faster and at a stronger effort, and again still be able to feel pretty good at the end of the day. And I wanted to certainly leave all my energy out there. That there's no benefit to taking it home with you. So I wanted to make sure that we went really, really hard. But knowing the output that we did in that race, that if we were to back it off 10 or 15% to be more like, call it Ironman pace. It allowed me to come out of that race with a ton of optimism with respect to the future. And it is all because of all the preparation we've done over the last 8 months leading into this.
Right. Well, keep in mind, you're the one who's swimming, biking, and running. I'm just a guy sitting on the other end of the computer writing the workouts for you. So you're the one that's done the great work. Talk a little bit about the race plan, the development of it, and kind of how we went through that process and what your thoughts were on coming up with the plan and then adjusting it and then rolling into race day.
Yeah, so this was the first time I actually sat down and built a race plan. And in the past it was, well, let's just go out and do it and see what happens. But this was different this time in that we had done, call it the swim portion, 100 times in the pool. So we had a pretty solid understanding of the time we were looking to get out of that. And actually, I fell behind on the swim a little bit. I think I went a little wide around maybe some of the buoys, but I ended up dropping about 7 or 8 minutes that I really wasn't planning on, which I've learned a few things in that regard, and that personally, I've learned it's hard to judge speed in open water versus in a pool. Because when you can't see things, you can't tell how fast you're going. So I just went at it, had fun with it. It ended up being an incredibly blissful swim, hence probably why it was 7 or 8 minutes slower than it was supposed to be. Then we popped out of the water, and like I said, went real hard on the bike, and I decided to make up the time there, and then followed up with the run. And so, for example, we were looking to go at about, I believe it was about 76% of full throttle, if you will, and kind of honing in on those numbers and trying to set the plan up that way. When we originally started it, before we knew what the data was prior to race day, it made sense. We said, let's take a look at some of the other races we've done and take a look at where you landed within your age group. And I find that I'm kind of a middle of the pack type of guy, and that I was kind of consistently coming in the 60 to 70% threshold range. So I wasn't the first guy, and not the last guy, but came in around the 60, 70%. So when we went into this thing, figure out what has everybody else done in the past at this race to kind of try to set some of our goals. We determined, like, for example, I wanted my bike split to be at 3 hours, and I wanted to be able to do it and nail it right at 3 hours. I didn't want to go over it, didn't necessarily want to go under it, but knowing where the power was and everything. And we came in at 2:49, so I'll take that any day of the week. And we did the same thing for the run. Between all the training and all the stuff we've done in the past, and taking a look at mile splits and everything, my goal was to come in at I wanted to do a 2:20 half marathon at the end, and I think I came in at 2:21. So I lost 8 minutes on the swim. I made up 12 minutes on the run, or 11 minutes on the run, and then I think I dropped like a minute on the 7 or 8 minutes on the bike, dropped a minute on the run, and came in at 6:04, and my goal was to go 6 hours. So between we were kidding around about this, but I think those 4 minutes I may have dropped into porta potties. I had to stop once or twice throughout the race, but you know what? At the end of the day, I came out of that race feeling incredibly good about the effort, incredibly good about the progress that we've made, and most importantly, came out feeling really optimistic about the race in Cedar Point here in this September.
Outstanding. Yeah, you had an absolutely great race. It was great to watch, and it's exciting to hear you talk about it. So your next big race is the Rev 3, the Challenge Family Cedar Point race in September. How's the preparation for that going so far?
Really good. We're about to kind of hit some of the bigger, kind of weekends now that we've got 70.3 under our belt, and we know that we're good there. Now it's just a matter of not necessarily trying to per se get any stronger between now and then. It's more of how do we make sure we can replicate that effort and just do it a little bit longer. And I think that's going to go back to a lot of the science that you and I have always talked about, because my brain tells me, well, let's just go out and start doing 6-hour rides every Saturday, and I'm sure there's better ways to do that. But to make sure we don't burn out, make sure we stay really, really strong with it. My goal is to have a pretty good race in September. It's going to be my first full. I turned 40 this year, and that was a micro goal of mine, is to make sure I did it this year. And I got to tell you, man, with everything that you and I have done over the last 8 or 9 months, it's a nervousness going into the race, but it's more of an exciting type of nervousness. It's not a scared kind of nervousness. I don't have any fears about whether or not I'm going to finish it. Going into this thing, I thought there was a chance I may end the race on a stretcher, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore either. So you never know what's going to happen on race day, but it's kind of cool knowing it's about six weeks away, and I'm excited about it. And I hope we can maintain that over the next 6 weeks.
Absolutely. All right, Ed. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time today and joining us. Tell us about the race. Looking forward for the next 6 weeks, and we'll see how everything shakes out at Cedar Point.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
All right, Ed. Thank you.